Not yet learned your lesson?
This time, Fenlong, I came ready.
Ready to lose again?
Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Dolan versus Garcia for the IBF Super Flyweight title. Let's talk about the fight.
What fight? Dolan got mollywopped. She got annihilated. Dropped 3 times throughout the course of the fight and stopped in 3. Garcia made short work of what was one of the more promising young British fighters coming up the ranks. The last thing I expected was to see Dolan get manhandled the way that she did, especially given Garcia being the smaller, noticeably smaller, older fighter. The last thing I expected was for to overpower her. It all happened so fast, it was hard at first to pinpoint what it is exactly that went wrong for Emma, but I think she was a little too quick to engage, given her physical gifts. She should have never got hit with those punches.
Shouldn't have been there.
If she were shifting her weight onto her back foot, hands at home, playing it cautious and cagey, sticking the jab out there and working off the counter, she should have never been in line for any of those overhands. If she was, it's probably because she was too quick to engage at the start. Taller, longer fighters like Emma are generally more vulnerable in the pocket because they've got longer arms, which create bigger holes to put punches in there, whereas if they're on their toes on the move, using that length, they're a lot harder to get to.
I still love you, Emma.
Garcia, who was the more experienced fighter going in with 26 recorded wins, only has about 6 recorded knockouts. She's not known as a knockout puncher.
For that reason, I didn't think ahead of the fight that Emma was in any danger of being stopped.
So now Dolan finds herself in a similar predicament to the one she put Shannon Ryan and Nicola Hopewell in when she gave them their first professional losses. She now has to rebuild and rebound the same way they did. Can she?
Post-fight, she took to her social media and stated, "Thank you to my team and everyone who came out for me on Sunday. MVP and Sky Sports put on a great show and are building something big for women's boxing. Sunday wasn't my night. Mistakes were made, but as always, I'll be back better. Well done to Irma. Hopefully I will see you again soon."
Interesting details about the defending champion that I was not aware of. That she's a police officer, that she's a lawyer, that she also has a municipal job on top of those 2, and she's a world champion boxer.
What a woman.
Characterizing that Mexican fighting spirit that we've all come to know and love, hard work and dedication.
Will fight, will travel.
Emma Dolan had almost every conceivable advantage. Height, length, and youth were on her side, as well as home field advantage, none of which played a factor because Irma took it out of the judges' hands. The judges could have stayed home.
Irma.
So I guess now I gotta recalibrate who I think is the weakest link holding a belt in the super flyweight division, as Irma proved to be a lot more formidable than I initially thought. Post-fight, she was called out by Virginia Fuchs.
Ginny, who said, "I'll give Irma credit for timing her with that overhand left. Let's fight so she can see my overhand left."
Virginia Fuchs, the reigning WBC interim champion, left in limbo by the WBC, who decided to give the woman she beat the opportunity that was supposed to go to her. Adelaida Ruiz was beat by Virginia Fuchs for the interim title,
Just so that the WBC themselves could fast-track Adelaida to a full world title shot ahead of Ginny. So if she can't get a title shot through them, what about through the IBF? What about through Irma Garcia?
In some ways, Irma Garcia is the ray of light at the end of the tunnel for Ginny Fuchs, who debuted pretty late as a professional and is getting on in age.
Irma's even older than her. She's already in her 40s, but look at her, knocking out unbeaten up-and-comers.
Silver lining that perhaps it's not too late for Virginia, who is now in her late 30s, to get something going in the paid ranks, albeit with only 4 recorded fights. Irma is simultaneously the most experienced champion at the weight, and Ginny is the least experienced contender. She's only got about 4 fights.
She wants that opportunity. She wants that shot.
And I don't know how she's going to get it. I believe that this past weekend's fight would have satisfied Irma Garcia's mandatory obligation via the IBF, so that would theoretically leave her free to take on a voluntary. In any event, Irma Garcia this past weekend beat Emma Dolan, beat the odds, and proved me wrong. Congratulations to her! In men's light heavyweight news, Callum Smith, you may have heard, is out of the David Morrell fight. Now Ben Whittaker is set to headline that show. Smith was supposed to defend his WBO interim light heavyweight title against the Cuban in his hometown of Liverpool at the M&S Bank Arena. Smith hasn't fought since February of last year, and it's not clear if the bout will be rescheduled. The specifics regarding his injury are unknown. Morrell was set to box outside the U.S. for the first time as a pro.
And off platform. Because remember, David Morrell is a guy who rose to popularity on the PBC side of things, but it's actually been a long while since he was over there.
Really don't have that much for him to do or much of a stake in the light heavyweight division. As it is, I suppose it's for the best that at least he's keeping active and keeping busy, albeit on other platforms, Turkey LL Sheik's shows, and what was supposed to be this one. WBO President Gustavo Olivieri has weighed in on the matter, and I believe they've given Callum Smith 180 days to reschedule this fight, or the interim title is forfeit.
179 now.
Callum Smith knows what's good for him. He'll reschedule that fight because if he doesn't, and the title is forfeit, he's out of position and he loses his title shot.
This fucking fight is cursed, man.
It absolutely is. It was initially supposed to go down on the undercard of Anthony Joshua's next fight before he got into that horrific car accident last year. Anthony's next fight was supposed to be at the beginning of this one. We all know what happened, so that pushed Smith versus Morrell back. Then they finally reschedule it, only for this to happen.
So now Ben Whittaker's going to be headlining that show, and David Morrell, who was supposed to be in the main event, has already taken to calling him out.
The Cuban contender wasted little time making his interest known. Dímelo, Ben Whittaker. I'm ready to fight April 18th. How are you older than me, but still a prospect? Let's give the fans the fight they want to see, Morrell wrote on social media after the announcement. Fans quickly picked up on the same point. One reaction read, "So why couldn't they just make Ben versus Morrell? Why are they still trying to protect this old prospect?" Others defended the decision and argued that throwing Whittaker straight in with the talented southpaw, whose birth name is Osvari, would be premature. It doesn't make sense at all. Do you realize how good Morrell is? Why on earth would they put Ben Whittaker in with him after fighting 3 rounds in 18 months? Another fan responded, Whittaker has proven to be a prodigious talent, but at 28, he will eventually need genuine tests if he's going to make the leap forward to a world title, something Hearn clearly believes he can achieve. The reasoning behind avoiding Morrell for now may come down to Whittaker's style. The Olympic silver medalist enjoys experimenting in the ring and trying new things during his fights. That flair makes him entertaining, but it also suggests his craft is being refined rather than fully perfected.
Now, how angry this does or doesn't make you all depends on what you think, and I never thought for a second that they were just going to throw caution to the wind and throw their prized stallion, Ben Whittaker, who's got star potential.
Yeah, fuck it. Just throw him in there with Morrell.
Anybody with any kind of common sense knows Matchroom wasn't about to do that. 28 years old or otherwise, Ben Whittaker is still very much a prospect, just now entering into contender status. And you could argue that it's a late arrival, though all the same, he really is just a prospect.
Yeah, David Morrell is comparatively more seasoned, and we all know that. You only have to look at Hearn's willingness to match Callum Smith with Morrell to understand how highly the promoter rates the Cuban's ability. Morrell is widely viewed as one of the most dangerous fighters at light heavyweight.
Wait a minute, I don't know about that.
Dangerous to Ben Whittaker, at least, and Whittaker could realistically be 12 months away from facing someone of that level. So what he needs to do this calendar year,
Get busy.
fight more often. Two things can be true at the same time. While it may be too early to put Ben Whittaker in there, at the same time he is 28 years old and he needs to get a move on. So you need to fight more often to bank those rounds and amass that experience.
There is also the question of marketability for Ben Whittaker. Despite his obvious ability, the surgeon still needs to build a solid fan base in the UK due to what many describe as a Marmite personality that divides opinion among supporters.
Some people like it and some people don't. The flashiness, the showboating, for me, it's a little bit too early to stunt on your opponents when your opponents are gatekeepers and journeymen.
Of course, you can get away with all that kid stuff, all those hijinks against them, but can you get away with it with a David Morrell? Taking everything into account, avoiding Morrell for now is probably the correct decision from Hearn's perspective. However, Morrell missing out entirely still feels strange when the event itself needed saving.
It's not really strange. David Morrell is not a matchroom fighter, and you're supposed to match him against who in Liverpool?
With Callum Smith's withdrawal threatening the Liverpool card, keeping Morrell involved could have created intrigue and perhaps even begun laying the foundations for a future clash with Whittaker. Instead, the Cuban now finds himself on the outside looking in, while the reshaped Bill attempts to regain momentum. That situation could prove significant locally. Smith's removal has already prompted some Liverpudlians to request refunds, raising the possibility that the M&S Bank Arena could see a reduced crowd on fight night. Whether Morrell's public call-out leads to anything remains to be seen, but the situation has at least planted the seed for a potential future rivalry.
It has. At some point, Benny Boy's gonna have to stop fighting gatekeepers and journeymen and fight the David Morrells of the light heavyweight division, the Joshua Buatsi's, the Anthony Yards.
Yeah, at some point, but not like this. Not on short notice, no.
Usyk is a guaranteed Hall of Famer, right? He's guaranteed. Fury is probably most likely going to make the Hall of Fame. But Joshua and Wilder, they will be fighting for a guaranteed spot because the winner of that fight is like a guaranteed Hall of Famer, considering the era. You can only fight the guys that are in your era. So I don't like to compare guys from other eras because sometimes one era is not as deep as the other one. But I feel like whoever wins that fight will everything both of them have already done, it will probably seal one of them to go to the next level as far as being a Hall of Fame fighter.
I tend to agree with Stephen Breadman Edwards' evaluation of this. The context of this conversation often happens in an arena where Anthony and Deontay haven't fought because they haven't fought, so if they both retired right now, who's getting into the Hall, based on what they've done so far?
For me, that's Anthony. Easily.
He is the comparatively more accomplished fighter. He's a two-time unified heavyweight champion, whereas Deontay Wilder never unified anything.
And he never won a title back.
After he lost the WBC title to Tyson Fury, that's the last time he was a world champion. Thus, in terms of accolades, Anthony's got the stronger argument. He's the more accomplished fighter. In terms of fame,
he's got Wilder beat there too. He's the bigger name. That's why he gets the bigger bucks.
And that was always the situation in spite of cognitive dissonance from the Americans who want to believe that Wilder is his equal and that they're on the same level. They never were, and they're still not.
There's only two ways to get into the Hall of Fame. That's either via your accolades or your fame, your notoriety. Anthony has always had more of that than Deontay even years ago. Why do you think he was able to get up $6 to $7 million for Charles Martin?
The PBC were not making that kind of investment in Deontay Wilder's career at the time because he didn't have the notoriety to do it. Whereas Anthony, he was already in a place where he was making big money and could kick out big money for opponents because he was always more popular.
So if they both retired right now, I think Anthony would have the stronger argument, by and large.
I've got strong opinions about Deontay Wilder's boxing career. I don't think there's anything Hall of Fame worthy about it.
I think he's one of the biggest hype jobs I've ever seen in American boxing.
I think there is a collective, cognitive dissonance from the boxing media, many boxing fans, to elevate him to a position that he hasn't earned because they're so desperate. For a dominant American heavyweight, they're willing to pour all of their hopes and dreams into this so obviously limited fighter that has no resume and no quality wins over anybody good.
Nope.
The only thing that keeps him in the conversation is their well wishes and the fact that he hasn't retired yet, and the Anthony Joshua fight is still viable. It could still happen, and just like Stefan said, maybe it would be best to elect the winner of their fight, if they do fight, into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
Let that be what decides it.
Wilder, Joshua, Fury, they're all well past their best. I think Wilder's the most faded out of all three of them. And Moses Saitama is poised to take over this division. Usyk is the current reigning king. He's basically beaten everyone. I don't want to see Wilder fight Usyk. Sure, if him and Joshua want to fight the most over-expired, you know, well past their expiration date fight, one of them, I'm not even speaking coherent sentences, that would be one of the most past its expiration date fights of all time, Wilder and Joshua. But if they want to do it, fine, go ahead. But yeah, Usyk once upon a time would have been an interesting fight because it would have been a tightrope act for Usyk. Usyk would have had to avoid getting hit with one really nasty right hand over the course of 12 rounds. So that suspense of Wilder getting outboxed every round, but could he land that one right hand? That would have made the fight have some suspense and intrigue. The days of that right hand are gone.
They absolutely are. I agree with Sean. You saw how Wilder looked this past weekend. And there with the old war horse, veteran Derek Chisora, a fighter who's even slower, more war-torn, and more faded than Wilder is. And even with Derek, he couldn't find his right. He couldn't finish him.
Wilder beat the odds, beat the naysayers, beat Derek, and proved a lot of people wrong, but he didn't exactly look good doing it. To where him versus anybody with a pulse, anybody good.
Forget it.
Always thought the effectiveness of Deontay Wilder's right hand was over-exaggerated by the American media who were so desperate for a dominant American heavyweight. I never thought he was that good.
Much less now.
I think the most that Wilder can do to salvage what remains of his career is tie up all the loose ends. All the fighters that you didn't fight when you were in better condition, they're faded now.
So's Wilder.
Should fight them. In my previous video, I made the recommendation that even if he can't get Anthony Joshua right away because Anthony's focused on Fury, you can fight Dillian White. You've got just as much backstory with Dillian White as you have with Anthony.
Keep busy with him in the interim.
He's another fighter who's slow and sluggish. He's another fighter who's shot to shit just like you, so you might actually beat him.
What about Joe Joyce?
Smoking Joe Joyce hasn't been the same since he got flattened by Zile Chang 2 times, just like Wilder.
Oh yeah, Chang beat them both. So what about Wilder versus Joyce? It's another fight that you could stage in front of a UK audience, it being that all the money in the heavyweight division is across the pond, is in the UK. You gotta go over there anyway.
Wilder's resume might not look half bad if he closes out his career tying up all the loose ends and fighting the fighters that he didn't fight when he was in better condition. They're all faded now, and so is he.
That makes fights between them intriguing.
There is some intrinsic value in it that I think would help strengthen Wilder's Hall of Fame bid. Crowning achievement would still have to be fighting Anthony and beating Anthony, because if they both retired right now, I don't actually think Wilder has a case.
I think there are a lot of very sentimental people in the boxing media who might want to vote him in off of sentimentality, not accomplishments and not gate receipts, not ticket sales and not pay-per-views.
Metrics don't make the argument that Wilder's more Hall of Fame worthy than Anthony. Really, nothing does. The only thing that could is if Wilder beats him.
And for that to happen, they have to fight.
We don't know if they're going to. Anthony's focus right now is the Fury fight, and who could blame him? He's a guy to beat Wilder. Just imagine if AJ beats him. His Hall of Fame ticket is punched.
We're still doing this in 2026, man alive.
Mulling over whether or not these two guys are gonna fight. Some things never change.